Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Suttala. If you don't know my face, I'm one of the members here at Holistic Health and Healing. And one of the things I jokingly had an inspiration for this past Sunday was to start something called Stir Crazy Shaman, since we're all kind of indoors and kind of stuck, just to offer a little bit of um, just a little bit of content to hopefully brighten people's day and talk a little bit about shamanism. Sometimes it will be just me, or sometimes we're going to have people on, just like we have Casey here, who's one of my brothers on the path. I met him years ago, just in passing at Goddess Elite, and that was it for years. And then all of a sudden, reconnected with him just in time for our upcoming Shaman Apprenticeship program. And Casey is also going to be offering some meditation things virtually through the center. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to have him on, let everybody get to know him a little bit. And Casey, why don't you give a little bit of your background about how you got into this crazy world of shamanism?
Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was a seemingly chance encounter and a lot of synchronicities around meeting you years ago, leading up to me continuing my training. But I have been practicing various shamanic practices for over 10 years now. I in high school sort of went through one of those rebellious, like, atheist phases where I was, if you had any kind of spiritual belief whatsoever, I was going to argue with you and prove through science how you were wrong and how I was superior intellectually or whatever. So Spirit had other plans for me, and I just kind of had all those switches that we have as far as our ability to perceive energy, spirit, all that sort of very abruptly switched on. And the experiences I was having, like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, seeing energy and spirit, were so powerful and sudden that I didn't know what was going on. So it caused a lot of chaos for a while, but then I started to study. And one of the first things I came across was shamanism, and how a lot of people having this sort of powerful experiences I had were people who were called to the path of the shaman. And so I'm the kind of person where I'm very hands-on and direct experience based. So rather than spending hours and hours researching in the beginning, which I later did, I just decided to jump right into shamanic journeying and try it for myself. I found a little book that described the basics of how you can, start to journey. And I think I got like a quarter of the way through it, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. And so I started journeying. Yeah, this is over 10, 12 years ago. And my first journey was right off the bat pretty powerful, connected with one of my first guides. And I've been very fortunate to have the close tutelage of not only my spirit guides, but a lot of really powerful in-person human teachers as well. And people and spirits have come along at the exact right times in my life when I've needed guidance, and just continued to push me down this path, the path of the healer, the shaman. So it's been a wonderful ride so far.
One of the things that I really loved when I saw one of your online events recently, it was a whole shamanic journeying with the energy of frankincense, which I think is something that we'll be hosting soon. And it resonated a lot with me because in the Karo tradition, the tradition that I initially learned, they don't believe in plant medicine at all. They believe it's actually something you don't need, and that it's all about the frequency of the plant or the frequency of what you're working with, and kind of falling into that tone of the plant or that vibration of the plant that you're working with. And it resonated a lot because you were offering this journey class to people without the need of any mind altering or anything like that. So could you speak a little bit about how you create that space of being able to enter into that frequency of whatever you're working with to have that experience?
Absolutely. So whenever I interact with a particular plant medicine, the first time I'm working with it, I do like to have some physical form of the substance, but that does not mean that I need to actually ingest it. So one way I really like to work with certain plants is through essential oils, and I would typically either put some on my pulse points or just inhale the scent, somehow connect physically with it. But then it's a matter of, again, just tuning to the frequency of the spirit of that plant. And what I do is enter into that trance-like state, that it's a focused, relaxed state of mind that we use to do this kind of work. And then I call on the spirit of that plant to enter into my space, my energy field, my body, and work with me and teach me. And after calling on the spirit of that plant to work with my body and my energy, it's a matter of just sort of quieting the mind and then allowing spirit to respond. And often it responds in very dynamic ways for me. I traveled to other worlds with these plant teachers, and they have some powerful lessons in healing for me. So that's sort of what I was the goal of the workshop, the shamanic plant medicine series, is to teach people how to work with plant medicine in a way where we are interacting with the spirit and the energy of the plant, which I believe is where the real medicine and power lies, instead of just this sort of, pop a pill, take some essential oil, whatever you do, drink some tea and then run out the door. I don't think that's the right way to interact with plant medicines.
Right, and it's also when I first started getting some of the things that I work with, before I would even attempt to have an experience with it, I would let it sit on my altar, and I would just kind of introduce myself energetically to the plant. And in the tradition that we practice, the Q'ero tradition of the Peru, the Paco Cuna tradition, basically the way to do that is you take whatever it is that you want to introduce yourself to. This is just a little crystal that I'll use for demonstration purposes, and you would hold it by your navel and just have the intention to let your physical body come into resonance with it. You would hold it at the heart with the intention of your moon eye, which is a combination of your will and love, to come into resonance with it by the head. And then when you bring it down to your lips, you introduce yourself by saying, "No Kenny, William Henry Settler, Ayu Apakuna Manta, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania," where you're basically saying, this is who I am, this is where I come from, because we believe in the Q'ero tradition anyway, that the feminine and masculine nature spirit of your birthplace holds the blueprint for the perfect you. So you're basically, in a way, saying, this is who I am, and here's where you find my blueprint of who I really am, who I'm aspiring to be. And through this process, like, you do the sacred high wild, which is a baby's breath of intention, and just breathe it into the leaves or whatever it is that you're working with, and it's your way of energetically introducing yourself to the plant. And then there's other ways where we call the plant into us. So it's I want to offer you something from what I've learned of how to introduce yourself and start connecting with plants like that.
Absolutely. I love it. And this is why I'm really excited to do the apprenticeship, is so much of my experience, be it working with plants or shamanic journeying or whatever I'm working with, has been taught by the spirits. And so I haven't learned a lot of the ritualistic side, the way that at least the traditional ways of interacting with plant spirits. So I'm really excited to learn more about that. And I find all this stuff so beautiful. I think that we don't need any particular specific ritual. I think that's an important thing to sort of, it's not about the specific of doing it this certain way and following step by step. However, I do really think that using ancient practices like you're describing can be a really powerful way to prepare the space for you mentally and spiritually, and also whatever medicine you're working with, be that a plant or a spirit or
Absolutely. In the Ultima Sag path, they say that the whole goal is to get the student to really do everything from their heart. Yeah. And Zane will tell this story about how one of the Pacos did a despacho, and he told the student, "Okay, now do it how I did it." Right. So the student tries to do it exactly, and the teacher comes up and just knocks everything off the rock that they were working on, and goes, "No, I told you, do it how I do it." And they try again to duplicate it until they finally get to the point where they say, "Screw you, I'm going to just do it my way." And then they say, "Now you got it." He wasn't trying to get you to replicate. He was saying, do it from your heart. Like, how are their spirits talking to you to do this? But that you get these templates that you can use until you start to have that one-on-one relationship with spirit. They give you these tools where it lets you get into the space where it can become where it's intuitive. Like riding a bike, at first you got to think about everything, and then eventually you just know how you need to turn, where you know that speed trap's coming up because you're just listening then.
So, and I know a big thing, and sometimes I forget how much work I did put in years ago in the beginning, but even just entering into that, I call it the trance state, and it's a very relaxed and yet focused state of mind where we do this kind of work, journeying, connecting with plants, connecting with different spirits for the purposes of our own healing or gaining insight. We work from that trance state, and like you said, you train and you practice over and over and over again to the point where it's just second nature. Like when I'm getting ready to journey or do any kind of shamanic work, I lay down or sit down and I can enter that state and I'm there. I'm off traveling, but I sometimes forget how much work in the beginning it took to just be able to train myself to lower the brainwave frequency to get into that state. And so yeah, it's very helpful to have techniques and ritual in order to help ourselves get there in the beginning, especially.
We
And
also have
always.
science to help with that. So one of the things that people don't know, I go by the name Sonic Shaman because I have hundreds of tuning forks. And since we're talking about kind of brainwave frequencies and that data state, there's something called binaural beats. And you can actually use the scientific technology, if you will, to help and train your brain to go into a theta state or go into an alpha state. And you can Google it. There's all kinds of different MP3 files out there. But basically what it's doing is it's sending a frequency into one ear. You have to use headphones when you do this. Or if you have tuning forks, like something like this, one of them might be 250 hertz, one of them might be 258 hertz. And because they're so close in pitch, your brain will actually take the difference. So the 8 cycles per second or whatever frequency you're going after, you're using two frequencies just slightly apart to create this binaural beat in the brain. And it actually helps and train the brain to go to a particular frequency. And you can even play with that and go to different levels of theta. And each level of theta seems to have little nuances of what type of information you get or what specific knowledge it has for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. I remember there's a wealth of that stuff out there. And I remember back in the day when that information, binaural beats, were just sort of coming online as far as being available for free on the internet. I remember you could, if you really looked, you could find a couple of videos and a really poor explanation of how it worked. But now it's everywhere. You go on YouTube, there are thousands of videos, it seems like, of binaural beats for specific frequencies, specific intentions. It really is amazing. Also, something really fascinating I've always wanted to play with, maybe you have, but I have not gotten the chance, is I think it's called binaural, no, not binaural. Something feedback, biological feedback, I think it is.
Was it just biofeedback?
Biofeedback, yeah. So basically, you have some sort of visual or audio cue where you put something on your head and it measures your brainwave frequency. And as you go down past beta into alpha and then theta, et cetera, you get little beeps or sounds that tell you which type of frequency you're in. And so that way, there's no guesswork. Am I in theta really, or am I, where am I? It gives you specific. And then apparently in doing that, you have that feedback. So your brain is like really easily able to get to specific frequencies.
I would be worried I'd be too focused on where am I at, and I would bring me out of theta and put me into alpha or something like that. Hey, Mike, for those of you just joining us too, this is not necessarily supposed to be me and Casey just talking. You're welcome to interact. We can see your comments. If you make a comment, I see Mike just, we call him Magic Mike. He just tuned in saying hello. Hi, Mike. But if you have any questions or if you have something that you'd like to offer as a contribution to our conversation, feel free to put it into the comments. We're happy to speak to that. But with the biofeedback machine, if anybody's interested in that, on our website, if you go to hhh.life, Dr. K, who is one of our affiliates, she is a medical doctor who also has a biofeedback machine and is into homeopathy. She's truly like the holistic approach to everything because she's got the traditional side of things plus all the holistic stuff. But she actually has one of those machines, and you can call her for a consultation and see what all that would be involved, what would be involved with she doesn't use it for just that intention. She can hook that up and like see the deficiencies in the body, what would be the greatest contribution to you. So those machines are great. It goes way beyond just brain waves.
Oh, wow.
Definitely check that out if you're interested. We have a practitioner at the center that does it. So very nice, shameless plug for one of our other shows.
Well, that's very cool. I'm going to have to take advantage of that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Anybody out there have a question or anything, or we'll continue to talk for a bit and see what comes up. Oh, one thing I did want to offer for kind of falling into that space for myself, what I had noticed, I would get these real high pitched tones, especially like if I was asking to work with a specific energy, I would start getting these tones. And I found that if I just laid down and I had the intention, like a diver falling backwards off a boat, like when you see those divers with the big tanks on, falling back off the boat into the ocean, I visualized myself and intended for myself to fall into the sound. And when I did it in this way, I found that I would just be off and having an experience somewhere with the energy. And that would work with like frankincense, like you were going to be doing, or pretty much any medicine. And when you're calling things in too, the way that we do it in the Karo tradition, you would say something like ahaya, which means attention, or iari, victory and praises, the name of what you're calling in. So frankincense, ompwi, 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 bring your healing here. And in this way, you could actually call upon the energy of your worst enemy and only bring the healing that it has for you. So it takes any fear out of working with any particular energy, because you're in the space of only receiving contribution for your possibility, for your healing from whatever you're working with. So it's a really beautiful way to call in energies without the fear of what you're calling in.
And I think that's there's a lot to be said about that. There are certain really powerful plant medicines that people work with, and just on the topic of plant medicine, that a lot of people are very intimidated by. And I think they don't realize that, you don't have to physically consume that plant by just inviting the spirit of that into your space. Like you said, you can walk with that spirit ally and have just as powerful an experience as you can ingesting it. But like you said, you're able to, I think, more easily filter out the aspects of that plant that you don't want to interact with. Wow. And do we have someone? Okay.
No. There was someone outside going through a door, but I didn't think it was that loud.
But so again, really, so I'm going a little bit off topic, but
there is no topic, so you're fine.
So to speak a little bit on the importance and how powerful it is to connect with the spirit of a particular medicine, as opposed to just consuming it and not really mindfully connecting with its energy. There's a really wonderful and fascinating plant medicine called ceremonial cacao that I've worked with. And I think most people are familiar with cacao as the ingredient we use to make chocolate. And ceremonial cacao is, it's essentially the same plant, but it's the heirloom cacao as it grew out of the earth and hasn't been bred over the years to be resistant to parasites. So it's higher in certain beneficial constituents. And also it's the completely raw form of that plant where they haven't processed it to remove the fat from the beans. And the process of doing that destroys, again, all these beneficial constituents. But so it's a much more dynamic plant medicine to consume ceremonial grade cacao than it is to just, take a tablespoon of raw cacao. But even doing that, if you were to take ceremonial cacao and drink it, and then you realized, oh crap, I've got to be out the door right now, and ran out to, work or whatever you had to do, you may notice you feel uplifted, a little more energized, but you probably wouldn't have too much of more of an experience than that. But if you take that exact same dose of ceremonial cacao and consume it and consciously call in the spirit of that plant to work with you, and really energetically connect with it using some of the techniques we've been talking about, it goes from being just this mildly uplifting sort of energizing experience to almost like, it can be almost like a psychedelic experience for people, really powerful and healing. And people have visions and all kinds of things. So for me, that really speaks to the importance of connecting with the energy of the plant medicine. But again, we can throw that back into what we're saying, and without you can skip out the physical part, but still call in the spirit and still have a powerful experience like that.
Even something as simple as chamomile tea. My wife scolded me for this, but I taught my kids how to call in spirits and things like that. So they'll be getting like a chamomile tea at night, and they're holding it. They're going, omply, 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 chamomile tea, omply, omply, omply. And she's like, why do you teach them that? but they're not just there for the tea. They're saying, hey, I want to bring it more into this than just consuming a tea. And it really makes a difference, even if it's something as simple as your nighttime before bed tea, or if it's your morning coffee. Why not take a moment and call that in? And under that same premise, for my smokers out there, as I know we got smokers, and if you're not going to quit, think of tobacco in the Northern tradition as this amazing prayer plant. It's an intention plant. And so if you're smoking focused on all the things that you're stressed about, what are you asking the plant to bring more of to you? Because your attention goes where energy flows, where your attention goes. So if you're going to smoke, sit there and look at what am I going to focus on? What possibilities could I create in my life while I am having this experience with the cigarette, instead of, just feeding my addiction to make it crave and go away. And while you have that habit, you can actually shift it into being a contribution to you potentially, and bring things into your life than just help taking away from your health.
Tobacco it's such a fascinating topic to me, because it has become this very taboo sort of plant in modern Western culture, but it really is such a powerful plant medicine. And like you said, traditionally it's used to send prayers up to Great Spirit, and they, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the time they're not actually inhaling it when they in the sacred pipe ceremony.
I don't believe so. Like, I'm not trained as much on the Northern tradition as I am in the Southern tradition. And in the Southern tradition, we have mompacha, which is like tobacco, and it's used in certain ceremonies. You make it like an alcohol infusion with it and use it in different ways. But I believe the Northern tradition, you're right, it's a pipe, and it's about, you just bring it in. And it's kind of like what we do in the South tradition, where you're doing a charged breath of intention. You're putting your intention in that smoke, and you're breathing it out and letting that lift up to the upper world, is how I believe that they use it.
Yeah, the way from what I understand, it's as they bring the smoke into the mouth, it's they sort of package the intention inside of the smoke to be, like you said, carried up to the upper worlds or Great Spirit. But it really is a powerful tool for manifestation. And for those who, anyone who's worked with tobacco in a ceremonial, spiritual way, I think anyone can attest to how powerful tool it is for manifestation. So like you said, when people are just sitting there unconscious, and when are people smoking, right? It's on their smoke break at work, when they're stressed, or when they just got home, or worse, when they're drinking, and who knows what kind of mental state they're in. And again, they're using this powerful tool for prayer and manifestation, and thinking of all this horrible crap. And then those people wonder why these terrible things keep happening to them.
And on the topic of why, when you ask why to the universe gives you the same thing that brought it to you in the first place. So you end up in this feedback loop. So why is one of those questions you ideally would want to remove from your vocabulary. There's like 6 things to remove. Just to throw this out there as another takeaway today, you want to not say why, because it's a victim question. The word but, because you negate everything you said up until that point linguistically. Like, hey, Casey, you're a great shaman, but like, I'm just joking about that. But that's what the word but, like, we're saying that to your wife, like, oh, your hair looks lovely, but like, you don't really like her hairdo, right? So there's why, there's but, there's try. Try means you're not going to do it, right? Need, as an infinite being, is there anything that you really need? Or is it all illusions because of separation, but we're really one? So is there anything as an infinite being you really need? And then the final one is want, because the energy of the word want back in 1940s, before they changed the definitions, is to lack. And if you say, I want money, you say, I lack money. Well, you say, I don't want money, you say, I don't lack money. So think about rich people. They say, you want for nothing, you lack for nothing. That's what that word means. So be very mindful how you use it. And the 6th one that I throw in that isn't part of the original list is the word perfect. Because if you decide and conclude and define something as perfect, if it turns out not being perfect, then you either have to make yourself wrong for being wrong, or you ignore all the things that aren't perfect and stay in relationships and situations far longer than you typically should.
I think also with the word perfect, you're putting a cap, right? So you've gotten there, and okay, yeah. now it's perfect, so it's never going to get any better than that.
Right. Oh, that's a whole nother thing for perfect. I usually use it as the opposite way, but great. Like, so if you say this is as good as it gets, now you're saying to the universe, I'm not willing to receive more because this is it. I'm good. Right. But you always say, how does it get any better than this? What else is possible? And the universe is happy to show you how it gets better. So whether you just stubbed your toe or you just won the lottery, how does it get any better than this, universe? And the universe says, here you go. This is how it gets better.
And that exact type of question that you just brought up, how can it get any better than this, is really powerful for retraining your subconscious mind. The subconscious, when it comes to manifestation, is where all the power is. You know, the conscious mind can only do so much. The subconscious is really what is doing far more work in the background than most people are aware of. So one way, the subconscious mind doesn't really want us to sort of break out of our current paradigms. It's trying to protect us and keep us from thinking the way that we are. So, for example, if a person has a particular idea of like what they're worthy of financially, a lot of people don't feel like they're worth $1 million, for example. They're only worth $10 an hour, and the subconscious mind, again, regardless of whether or not consciously you think that's a good idea, the subconscious is just trying to protect that current paradigm. So if you ask some of those questions, like, what will I do when I have all of this extra money? And an open-ended question like that, then the subconscious is forced to look for an answer, right? Because the subconscious can't filter out questions. Any question that is given to the subconscious mind, it'll work to find an answer. But if you ask a specific one, like, something like, I'm having trouble thinking of a specific question now. Okay,
Well, the question's easy, actually. The question you always ask is, what energy could I be? Because beingness precedes doingness. So if you go to ask, what am I going to do with all the money I'm going to have, you're getting to the end point of expressing your beingness through doing. But the question is, what energy could I be? And anything that doesn't allow me to be that, let me have it in my awareness so I can change it. And that's really that question can roll for pretty much anything you want to actualize in your life, not manifest. Actualization is that something shows up. Manifestation is how it shows up. And if we are too focused on the how, sometimes we handcuff the universe out of the million ways it could have given it to us. We're all bent out of shape if we only can receive it one way, and then it takes a lot longer for the universe to bring it to us.
Absolutely. Oh, and I think this is a cool little segue into shamanic journeying. Talking about so I could talk about manifestation all day, but when we are working with manifestation using the conscious mind, like we said, it has a certain amount of power, but the subconscious is where all of that power lies. So again, say whatever you're trying to manifest is a new car or something, you can sit there and think all day about what it's going to feel like to be in that new car, etc. But if you're doing so from this sort of everyday, ordinary consciousness, and working from the same mindset that you typically act from, there's going to be a lot of resistance from the subconscious mind to try and manifest that, because we have all these subconscious beliefs of, oh, I'm not worthy. How is that going to happen? Blah, 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 blah. Again, these questions we shouldn't be asking. And in shamanic journeying, a lot of the time what we're trying to manifest is healing, right? So we're trying to heal some aspect of ourselves or others. So what we do is, by entering into that trance state and then exiting normal reality, traveling through the realms of spirit, we're able to interact directly with those infinite realms, the realms of infinite possibility, where everything that could possibly be already exists in some way. And so if we're trying to manifest some kind of healing, we can go and ask spirit directly, the universe, the subconscious, all of those things at once directly, and we can interact and play with that world in a completely dynamic way. Whereas if we're just asking the question to ourselves of how can I heal, or whatever, what energy can I allow to heal this particular ailment, we may sit and the subconscious mind is going to work. Well, how much more dynamic is it to be in those realms and experiencing a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional world that's responding to you in a very real and alive way? And so really dynamic work happens in that space.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And while people are waiting to be able to get to that space themselves, because not everybody can go there as easily as others, but still asking the question in whatever space you're able to get to, that's where the real magic happens. It's really coming down to allowance. Like you mentioned, like everything that does happen or is available happens already in the ever-present moment, and now it's all there. It's just a question of what you're in allowance of receiving. And most of the time when we don't have something in our life, it's not that the universe is unwilling or unable to provide it to us. It is we are not in the space where we're willing to receive it for whatever reason. And one of the things that sticks us the most, that I'll speak to, is something we call glass ceilings. So if you were taught, like one of the things my parents mentioned to me when I was little, because I asked, why don't we have a swimming pool like the rich lawyer in our church, right? And the water slide and all that. And I think the comment was something to the effect of, well, rich people need all that stuff because they're not really happy. So I learned as a kid, oh man, rich people aren't happy. So part of my subconscious is like, wow, if I have money, I'm not going to be happy. I don't want money, no matter how much I'm consciously trying to create it. Oh my gosh, my unconscious says we'd rather be happy than have money. Or money is the root of all evil, or love of money is the root of all evil. Money corrupts. All these little things that get into the other than conscious or subconscious can create these glass ceilings where your unconscious creation outweighs your conscious choice or your conscious declaration of will, because more of you is really over here. Even though it's like the iceberg, you need to bring more of it to the surface to out manifest the subconscious stuff. And if you can start getting rid of the glass ceilings, or sibling rivalry is a big one. Why can't you be like your brother? Now, if you've determined and concluded and agreed with the projected role from your parents that you're the misfit and your other brother is always a successful one, you'll never allow yourself to create more than a sibling. So it's like getting rid of all that gunk that might be stopping you that you don't even know about.
And a big part of healing or manifesting anything is just that. It's less about, I think, learning how to do, learning how to heal, learning how to manifest certain. It's more about unlearning all of these things that we've been indoctrinated with from a young age. And there are so many, even seemingly simple phrases that we're sort of programmed with that that really shape our worldview and create those glass ceilings. Like a big one is imagination. When people start to do this work, I get asked the question all the time when I'm teaching people the journey of, how do I know I'm not making this up? Or is this all in my head? How do I know this isn't just my imagination? Right. And those phrases are in a way sort of, designed to create almost like a distrust with our own creative potential. When we're sitting here, whatever work we're doing spiritually, if we're having this beautiful experience, for a lot of people, there's that, even if it's so real, it's like, it's almost as though it's right here in front of your face. Still, there's some part of the mind for many people that comes up and goes, well, I'm probably just making this all up, so it doesn't matter. And then it's almost like you're taking the power away from that whole experience. You're not really gaining anything from it or allowing yourself to go further. These little seemingly simple phrases, these simple questions that people ask of themselves they hold more power than people realize. But when we recognize that they do hold that power, then that gives us the power to consciously try and work to get over that.
One of my teachers is Elaine Thomas. She's the foundational pastor at Fellowships of the Spirit in Lilydale, New York. And when she started doing the work, she used to visualize this temple, this pyramid of light around her house, and asked that only people that wanted to heal and grow would find her. And she just put that out there every day. And she talks in class about a lot of the things he just said, like, what if I'm just making it up? And she's like, well, I was making it up. And then one day somebody came in and they said, what's this like energetic pyramid that's over your house about? And like somebody else is able to perceive that. So what if making it up is part of the creative process? And you are making it up. You're declaring your will into the universe, and it's creating. Just because you don't see it with your physical eyes doesn't mean that it's not real.
I was with a good friend of mine. We were walking through Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and we were just sort of playing with manifestation. And we knew it was around the time that blackberries should be in season. I'd never eaten wild blackberries before at this point. I just had never really been confident enough to forage anything, but he was confident. And so we were talking about blackberries. And so one of us put it out there, okay, we're going to turn this corner and there's going to be a blackberry bush right there. And sure enough, we turned the corner and there's a blackberry bush right there. We sat there and it was wonderful. But then he asked me, now, was that blackberry bush there because we declared that it was and manifested it? Or did we perceive that it was there before we got there and that's why we said that? And my answer was both. I think we're simultaneously creating reality and perceiving it. And it's kind of an interesting, pretty wild thing to think about. But even scientifically, we know that the entire room that I'm seeing around me, the voice that I'm hearing coming through the microphone, even the physical solid sensations, those are all just electrical signals interpreted by the brain. So we are always creating this reality, very literally, even from a super scientific standpoint. We're constantly creating it and perceiving it simultaneously. And when you really start to have direct experience with that and realize that, certain rules, certain continuities that we were trained that are a certain way, you start to realize you can sort of bend certain rules. Then things, right? Then things get really magical, very magical.
There is a video. If you Google neuroscientist access consciousness, I forget the name of the doctor, but he was doing topographical brain mapping of different energy modalities. And this was a talk about access consciousness. But towards the end of the video, they actually mapped a secondary nervous system riding on the lymphatic system that has 7 groups of ganglion nerves. And they all come to the top of the skin, at the crown, the throat, third eye, like all where the chakras are. There's
wow.
the ganglion nerves that actually come up to the top. And I forget the amount of time, but if you focus on an intention for a certain period of time, that you can actually track like how it's pulling energy in from the universe or from space, whatever you want to call it, and then it goes through the body, and then it goes out at like 5 magnitude. I forget. It's exponentially greater output than the input, but they were saying that this could be the beginning of mapping the process of manifestation and actualization.
Wow.
Like scientifically. So it's just kind of cool, like how science is catching up or starting to bridge over into the metaphysics, and you can actually speak to some of these things that are measurable now.
It's amazing. And I know I've seen video, they have cameras that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've seen footage of cameras that are able to perceive or translate the energy around a human body into like actual colors that we can see on a screen. So in essence, through a physical video camera, they are able to show a person's aura, which I think is pretty incredible. Because, and it's fascinating. There are still so many people when you bring up the topic of, energy or, any spiritual experience, or people that are, well, again, going back to, how do you know people aren't just making that up? Well, look, one, we have physical instruments that can measure this stuff now. So, but I think that's really exciting. I think that's going to help to get a lot of people over that sort of initial hurdle of, is any of that real? Because when you get over that and then you actually start to explore and experience for yourself, then you're on the path to really discovering an incredible world opening up in front of you. But I think that those instruments, the scientific instruments we have to measure that sort of thing, are just such an exciting field and topic. I think that's amazing.
I don't know the science behind it, but I know Melissa, who owns the store next to the center, they're closed now, of course, because of the coronavirus. But they have, I think, every Sunday aura photo readings where you put your hand on this little thing and then there's a camera and it will create the reports, or it can actually even show you. Now, here's some cool, something I can't speak personally. I can't speak to the science of it, but I know that I had this experience. I was at a psychic fair where someone had like one of those medical aura ones where you could actually see reports and you could see the aura change, right? And so while one person was sitting in the chair, I took my tuning forks, which were for solfeggio, which is one of the ones you use to balance energy centers, and I did a balancing session for them. And when I was using the forks that were intended for the root chakra and the solar plexus, like you could see the auric field changing colors appropriately for the process, and you could see the whole aura shift. And even more fun, I could probably post this picture afterwards. There's a picture where someone went and they got an aura photo reading from Goddess Elite at a psychic fair before a session with me and after, and it was like a night and day difference.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So whatever the science is, can't speak to that, but I do know that whatever it is, you can see a noticeable difference with what it's doing before and after you have energy work done.
That is so cool. I find that so incredible. And I remember, I'll never forget, it was back when I was first sort of learning about energy. This is years and years ago. I had, I was studying at a Zen temple, and the teacher there, I remember I went to talk to him after the meditation session, and I said, I've been studying quantum physics, and it's amazing. Like they know these tiny, the smallest particles, electrons, they blink in and out of existence, and just explaining all this amazing, mind-blowing stuff they're discovering. And I said to this Zen teacher, I was like, isn't that amazing? Isn't that like mind-blowing? And he goes, no, not really. We've known about that stuff for thousands and thousands of years. So I felt a little defeated at the time, but then, but again, it's just, it's this stuff that the shamans have known, have had access to, and have been working with these energies and these very real realities on these multiple layers of reality outside of the physical. They've been here. They always have been, and just now technology is. I think we're really in a really exciting time because technology is just now starting to be able to physically pick up on that stuff. I don't know if physically is the right word there, but.
They're able to measure it and
right.
show that something's happening. Well, even like Reiki, just to talk about something that people probably know a little bit more offhand than Mike posted a link for the bars review. So anybody looking for that video we talked about, Mike in the comments is posting the video. But anyway, now I lost my thought. Mike distracted me. Distractor implant. Out of pocket, Mike. What was I just saying? Reiki. So the Cleveland Clinic did a double-blind placebo study on Reiki, and they would even like hook the practitioner up, or fake practitioner up, to like different things while they were doing it, did blood draws, all this stuff. And though they couldn't explain exactly how it was happening, they could see that something was happening. And if you go to the clinic for a surgery now or anything else, you actually can opt to have Reiki services and have a practitioner come to your room and offer energy healing at the Cleveland Clinic, which is like one of the medical meccas of the world. So that's a great testament to also show just how far all this, things from Tibetan temples and things have really come in the world to be readily available and more accepted.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I actually have a friend who works for, they have now at different locations for the Cleveland Clinic. They're like holistic health centers where they almost entirely focus on alternative healing modalities. So not just Reiki, but they bring people in that do, that teach yoga, do various forms of meditation, different energy healing modalities like pranic healing, shamanic healing, and I think that stuff is all starting to be covered by insurance, which is something that I think is really important, because there are so many people who I think are interested in alternative healing and exploring energy healing, shamanic healing, all of this stuff, but they have good insurance that'll pay for them to just take a pill. So, they're not willing to sort of step out of that comfort zone to make the commitment. So I think now that we've got these centers, and like you said, even in hospitals, them offering as a part of their services, Reiki, various forms of healing, meditation, I think that is going to really start to shift the public perception, because more people who I think wouldn't have sought out these modalities are going to start to open up to it and experience the results. And then I think the word is, if it hasn't already, which I think it is really going to start to spread like wildfire, that all this stuff is out there and it's powerful. And
it's going to go viral.
Maybe not the best terminology right now. But yeah, absolutely. But it's exciting times. I really think we're, we are in this, that sort of mass awakening or ascension that people always seem to bring up. I think we're in, a very exciting point in history. I think we're going to start to see at a very rapid rate people waking up all over the planet to the possibilities of spirit and just really rediscovering the ancient truths. I think this is like a crucial point.
And one reason I think for that is when we are with our everyday lives and going through the hustle and bustle, we are an autopilot. And you're not even the one brushing your teeth. The little robot is doing it for you. And as we take a complete step back from our quote unquote normal lives, it gives us opportunity to just sit, you, yourself, and your soul, and just see what comes up. So if you're home doing, your social distancing and quarantining and all that, don't just turn the TV on. Like, do what you're doing now. Hopefully, watch things like this. just sit with yourself and just ask, what are the possibilities with the situation? What could I use? How could I allow myself to grow and become more from the situation that's currently in the world, and see what happens? When you ask a question like that, it's like boom, and the whole world can unfold around you. In my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you said, this whole busy mindset that people have of, I think it was someone, it was grandma at the Spirit Lodge, brought up how, she lives in an apartment complex and she has all these neighbors who she knows by name, but anytime they're passing in the hall, some people like almost don't want to give each other the time of day. We're so focused on do this, get to the next thing. Not only are we not connecting with each other, but I don't think we're connecting with ourselves. No one questions anything. So this sort of mass quarantine that's happening on the planet is sort of like the universe putting us in timeout in a positive way, so we can reflect.
And if you haven't, if you watch, there's videos on Venice, like dolphins in the waterways. It's just amazing how much the world has already come back a little bit, just with partially pushing the pause button, people not driving around as much, and businesses and manufacturing shut down. Like the pollution in China is completely different in just a couple of days. And just wonder, what contribution this is to the earth, just having this temporary pause and actually just being for a little bit, instead of being human doings, we actually can just be for a little while.
I think that's, I've learned a powerful lesson from all of that, or received a powerful message, I should say. And that is that, the earth has vast, powerful healing capabilities. And we always talk about, how we need to save the planet. What can we do in the long term to, reduce our emissions and slow down global warming? And, it seems to be this monumental task that's just so big that, like, unless the world leaders decide this is happening, then the earth is never, we're doomed or whatever. But it's like you said, you give the earth a day. You just chill out for a day, and it very quickly starts to heal itself. But I think another message that we get from that is we can turn to the earth for our own healing. And that same powerful healing capability that is present in the earth is present within us. If when you get a cut on your hand, if you just leave it alone, the cut seals and it'll completely heal itself. And so, just taking time to be, we can heal just about anything: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. But it's taking that time to be with it is what's really important.
One thing with healing too that's just popping up, sometimes people start to identify with whatever is the matter with them, and we call one term for this is called secondary gains. And I had one lady who I asked her, "What do you love about your lupus?" And she's like, "I don't love anything about my lupus." And she was like all anti the question at first, but then she thought about it. She's like, "You know what? Every time I don't want to do something, I blame it on the lupus." And I said, "Well, maybe you could just say no, and you don't need to have lupus." And there's more to the story, but her lupus is gone. The lupus for her dad is gone. And it really was her just shifting and letting go of something she was identifying she needed from something. So like healing is really dynamic. Different people get to where they are different ways, and different things help to free you up and help you to move forward. And also realizing healing is not always a cure. Healing is sometimes just a change of perception. Darlene DeStefano, who was the other author of the book I authored, she would say that HEAL is an acronym, helping everyone appreciate life. And just if you have that ability to just shift their point of view just a little bit and increase that life quality, that's really what it's about. And sometimes it's a miracle, and sometimes it's just a subtle little shift in their point of view.
Absolutely. And just like you said, a shift in perception can really it changes everything, but it's seemingly doesn't change anything at first. It can be so simple, and I think a big one is just stepping out of that constant thought stream, right? And that identification we have with the mind. And I think that the reason we get so easily pulled along these, I ask people sometimes who stress out about all these really horrible things, and they find themselves thinking about, why this relationship was, so horrible from 5 years ago. And I asked them, well, what are you gaining from thinking about that and contemplating right now? Is that really helping you? And for a lot of people, if you ask them, they can identify. It may start with something really simple. You're walking, in the grocery store or something, and someone passing by, does something, says something, and you just have a simple thought of like, wow, that was annoying. And that little thought of that was annoying. Next thing is like, yeah, you know what? Speaking of annoying, that guy yesterday, he said something that was really annoying too. I wish I would have said this to him. And then the next thing you know, you're from this horrible relation that had happened 5 years ago in your head, going through these spirals of how this could have gone. But people they're not consciously aware of how they're getting pulled along. And so I think one of the simplest shifts in perception that we can have, but one of the most powerful, is to realize that constant stream of thoughts running through the head, that's not us. There's something more constant there. There's something beyond that. And it seems like this sort of really big, powerful realization that you have to have in order to really experience that. But it's the simplest thing. Just really sitting there and being with your thoughts in meditation, like mindfulness meditation. Pay attention to your thoughts as you sit, and thoughts arise and they come and go. What's the constant that's there? What is it that's aware of those thoughts? And that begins the process of helping us to step out of identification with the thought stream. And that's a really powerful thing. And, at first it's such a simple shift. It's like nothing really changed. But at the same time, we've put ourselves in a position to, instead of being pulled along wherever the mind wants to take us, now we can use the mind as a tool for creation of whatever we want, healing, manifestation of anything. But we have to step out of identification with it in order to use it as a tool consciously, or else it's just using us.
And speaking a little bit to your example where the guy annoys you in the supermarket and the next day you're beating yourself up, we have this tendency to judge ourselves based on current data. Like we judge past actions based on current data. And half the time we need to do that is because in the moment that we did whatever it was we're kicking ourselves for, we were in reaction mode and not responding mode. And through the tools of meditation and things, you start to step back a little bit. And when the guy does start to be that energy that would annoy you, now you're in a place of actual choice, and you can respond to it instead of reacting to it, and recognizing that really wouldn't be what your choice should be if you were fully present in that situation. And so that meditation's a great tool, and I'm looking forward to your meditation classes, and people will get a lot of benefit from getting those tools for themselves to continue to get more of themselves back. Mark Thomas, he's my meditation teacher from Fellowships. And he would give this as an analogy for meditation. Like, what you're really going for is to recognize that this silence is ever present. Like, there's this underlying energy that's ever present. And he related it to like a movie theater. When you go to a movie theater, before the movie starts, and back in the day before they had a million commercials from the moment you walked in the door, right? But the screen was white, and the screen represented the silence. And that's what you're going for in meditation. You're getting to where that screen is white. Then when you go about your day amongst the chaos and the illusion, your movie's playing, right? The screen is still white. The silence is ever present amongst the chaos that you're perceiving. And if you can remind yourself of that as you go about your day, your whole experience just shifts, because you're not going to get overwhelmed by whatever you're perceiving, because you know it's all BS. We are in the duality. We're an infinite being from oneness in a place where we have the perception of being apart from one another and duality. But if you can function in the duality from the one-ality, your whole life will become ease.
Absolutely. And just like you said, that peace, the oneness, the isness is always there, no matter what. Even in the most chaotic situation, where there seems to be extreme suffering, and there's still peace is underlying. It's the underlying space that allows all of that to happen. Connecting, acting, being, identifying from that instead of this constant fluctuating stream of thoughts, there's so much power in that. And then, like that, I think ultimately that's what we're really trying to achieve in all of this healing, all of this work we do through meditating, all of this. We're really trying to manifest that peace, that remembering of who we are, that remembering that we are the space. And so, yeah, I think it's so important to have tools to help us to reconnect with that. And the shamanic meditation, any kind of meditation, I think is an excellent way to start to rediscover.
Okay. Got a few minutes left for our planned hour. I know we have still a couple people who have stuck with us, or maybe they're just new people that came in halfway through and the old people left us. But if anybody has questions or things that you want to contribute or comment about, we got a few minutes left. If you want to throw anything you'd like to know about in the comments, we'll be happy to speak to it. But part of our reason for doing all this is just in a world that's kind of on lockdown, wanting to offer just a little bit of inspiration. And also, I think hopefully people have gotten some tools from our dialogue today that you could use to go out immediately and start to change your life. Just like the question, how does it get any better than this? If you took one thing away from our whole talk, that one sentence, repeating that question over and over again throughout your day can shift everything and put you on this upward spiral possibility. So definitely. Any key things, takeaways that you want to reemphasize as we kind of get to the close of our time here?
So less reemphasizing, and something that I feel like I should have brought up more, but when talking about these shifts in perception, I think gratitude is extremely important. When we're in that sort of victim mindset and, focusing, we're having trouble raising our vibration or getting ourselves out of focusing on the negative, the things that we don't want. Gratitude is such a powerful tool to shift your perception and bring you into a higher vibrational state. Even if it's something really simple you're grateful for in the moment. I'm sitting here at whatever, you're having a cup of tea. Thank you for this cup of tea. It's so warm and delicious and beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That little bit of gratitude will instantly shift your perception, and then you can really start to play and create from a much better space.
And if you can't be grateful, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been sober 14 years, I think, give or take. And one of my first AA meetings, my sponsor told me self-pity and gratitude cannot coexist. And he said, even if you think it's BS, anytime you're in self-pity mode, whatever you're in self-pity about, rephrase it. So one of them was, there was somebody else that I really wanted to help. And he's like, well, just be thankful that you're sober. And if and when they're willing to receive help, you're in a space where you can give it. And just rephrasing questions like that. And at the beginning, I didn't feel grateful at all, but there came this shift. I just kept with it. And there came a turning point where instead of just playing a word game, I actually went to a space of gratitude. So be grateful in the moments you can, and in the moments that you can't, fake it. And eventually you shift, and you will actually be grateful for even when your son breaks your favorite flute and smashed it on the floor, and be like, oh no, even for those moments, you'd be like, well, I'm grateful that he reminds me that nothing's permanent.
That sounded like that came from personal experience there.
But it could very easily have happened.
But gratitude is, if there was one thing I wish that everyone would focus more on, especially in these days when there's so much fear and so much focus on things like scarcity and uncertainty, just gratitude. Be thankful. That'll get you out of all of this. And you shift your perception, you focus on gratitude, and the whole world will start to change around you. Just change the within, and the without will follow suit.
Brings up a prayer that or you can call it an intention, call it a prayer, but it would be a great note to kind of wind down on. It's a prayer called the Set Aside Prayer. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so it starts with all gratitude, and this was used back. I heard it in the Back to Basics workshop, but anyway, you start with, "I give thanks, dear Lord, God, Source, Infinite Spirit," whatever you want to pray to. You pray the sweet baby Jesus, whoever it is, but you're gonna say, "Infinite Spirit, God, Mother, Father, God, we give thanks for the food in our stomachs, the clothing on our backs, the shelter over our heads, and the air in our lungs. And we ask that you help us set aside everything that we think we know about religion, about politics, about healing, about health, about viruses, about everything you want to put in there so that we can have an open mind and experience the truth.
That's beautiful. I love
A lot of times we are basing our things on past data, and the things that we have points of view on might be something that our parents stuck us with or friends stuck us with, and it's not even really truly our point of view. We just bought it. And if we can set all that stuff on the shelf for just a moment, we might just have our own spiritual experience and come to our own knowing. And that's what it's really about. Don't take our word for any of this. Go and sit with it and come to your own realization, because if you align and agree with us, you're just as stuck as if you rejected everything we said. Because you're taking something in definition and conclusion. You know, I'm talking with my hands and they're below the computer, so no one can even see them. But they say that good points of view stick you more than bad points of view because you're settling. And if you say, oh yeah, this is it, this is all I'm going to do, and you don't pause for a moment and have your own question and dialogue with spirit, what would create the greatest change and possibility in my life, and come to your own awareness, you're just as stuck as someone that says those guys are full of shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And direct experience, that's what shamanism is really about. The difference between this and religion or science or or whatever you have, is that we encourage direct experience. So through these shamanic meditations, I'm encouraging people to directly communicate with spirit for their own healing. I'm not telling people what kind of experience they're going to have and trying to force my own way of healing onto someone. It's, you go there and find out yourself. And I think really direct experience is the only way to grow and to really discover our own healing, our own true path. So yeah.
And true paths, by the way, are never one that you're following. It's the one that you're trailblazing, because no one's walking before you.
Absolutely. I love that. That's a great phrase.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hanging in there for the whole hour, or coming and going. Or if you're catching this on the replay, thank you so much for taking your time to spend with us here. And I will be posting a link. We don't have Casey's registration link up yet on our website, but it will be at hhh.life. And you can, he's going to be doing meditations starting next Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Just doing little guided meditations. Well, I don't even want to say guided. I don't know that they're guided. He's going to be doing meditations, and whatever's going to create the greatest possibility in that hour that he's going to be working with you, that's what he's going to do, I'm sure. And every day might be different.
Yeah, and they're sort of adaptation of a style of journeying. Obviously, since we're doing it in a sort of group setting, they are more of a guided meditation, but they are based on my experiences with shamanic journeying. So it's kind of a journey guided meditation hybrid, but they tend to be really powerful for people. So I encourage anyone who feels called to join. It'll be a great time.
And if you like this, I think we'll be doing this again. I think you had fun. I had fun.
Absolutely. It was a great time.
I'm going to be doing it every day. I don't know if it's always going to be at noon. I just we picked it and then we ran with it, but it might be at different times a day. If in the comments a different time would work, hey, let us know. Maybe we'll try to be on when more people can receive. And the great thing is this is all archived on the HHH Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So if you want someone to have the opportunity to watch what you watched, please share it. They can go back. It's going to be there. It's there for all of eternity.
And thank you everyone for watching and giving us your attention and energy. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you all. And we'll see you maybe tomorrow.
Yes.